I spent too many years being too scared to show my work. I didn't ask for help. I didn't ask for readers, and it fucked me. Like, I could have been rewriting and gotten so much further, I think. But I was like shy. I was scared. I was like too perfectionist. I wanted to only show final drafts. I didn't want to show stuff in process. And it's always a process.
I'm Charla Lauriston, a stand-up comedian, writer, director, and producer, and this is the Werking Writer Podcast, where screenwriters, creatives, and industry insiders share their stories of breaking in hopes that it helps you along your path. I'm so excited you could join us. If you like what you hear, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Without further ado, let's get to work. Hello, and welcome to the Werking Writer Podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. My guest today is Megan Neuringer. Megan has written on Broad City, Portlandia, and Billy on the Street, and others. Megan and I met in 2019 when I brought her on as a writing supervisor for a sketch show I was doing with Comedy Central. The show ended up not going anywhere, but Megan and I have been friends ever since. In this episode, Megan and I talk about the importance of finishing your work. We talk about the idea that a lot of artists come to Hollywood to heal, and so much more. There's so much great stuff in this episode. I hope you get a lot out of it. And without further ado, here's my interview with Megan Neuringer. Megan Neuringer, welcome to the show. I always do my Jewish New York accent whenever I talk to you for some reason. I don't know why.
I'm like, I wonder why.
I don't know why. I can't guess.
I just had 23andMe done, and it was like 100% Jewish, like not a drop of anything else.
Well, this is perfect.
Yeah.
This is perfect to know that you just got your DNA test done, because I like to start with who you are. So tell us where you're from and how you grew up.
Turns out I'm 100% genetically Jewish, but if things go south and like the next election is really bad, I didn't say that.
Oh, God. We're going to have to talk about that.
No, I'm from New York, and I moved out to LA to do writing, acting in 2014, and I've been here ever since.
Fantastic. So you're a Jew from New York. What kind of Jew? Because I know there's like Ashkenazi Jews, like there's different kinds of Jews. So like, what kind of Jew are you?
I mean, I'm 100% Ashkenazi, sort of the DNA. But I would say I'm like very culturally Jewish. I was sort of raised more like practicing, but I don't really, I'm deeply culturally New York Jewish mentality. But, you know, my husband's Brazilian.
I love that.
I wouldn't say I'm like a practicing, although I like to do the high holidays and cook Jewish, like again, culturally.
Well, tell me what that looks like. What is, a culturally practicing Jew?
I complain a lot. So number one is I am always complaining. It's like my sport and hobby. And I even think like, even with like Tomas, my husband, he's Brazilian and very easygoing. You know him.
Yeah.
It's not part of his culture really to like bitch and moan. Like things are just like good and positive.
Right.
At a certain point, I had to explain. I was like, oh, when I complain, that's like material. That's me like part of like, again, it's cultural.
You're just making conversation when you complain.
Yes,
it's not like to do anything about it.
No, I absolutely don't want anything done about it, because if things were perfect, I would have nothing to say.
Can't complain.
Yeah. Can't complain is a complaint for a Jewish person.
Right.
And now we have like this joke where I'm just like, I'm not mad, I'm outraged. Just so he knows, like, I'm just complaining for the sake of like entertaining myself.
You have to let it out.
Yeah.
Right.
I have to make a critical observation about something because that makes it funnier. You know?
So that is a huge part of the culture. That is basically how you grew up. Everyone's just running around complaining about stuff.
That's like the coping mechanism a little bit. Yes, you could be having the best time, but you're actually shitting on it while you're having the good time.
All right. So that's Jewish culture.
I don't want to speak for everybody, but there's a very famous like Jewish joke that I'm about to botch because I don't know it perfectly, but it's like, the food is terrible and the portion's so small. Like that's Jewish culture. They hate the food and they also think that there wasn't enough of it.
Amazing.
Yeah. Ashkenazi.
All right. How many siblings did you have?
I have 2 older brothers. who aren't alive. And I think you know this. And I have a deceased twin sister. It's not so formal. There's like actually no great way to talk about it without sounding like a robot, I have discovered. I'm like, and here's the thing where I will just like talk about it detachedly. Because if I talk about it in a different way, I'm going to be like.
Is it still awkward to talk about it after all this time?
Yes. Like right next to my computer are pictures of us together. But to discuss it in terms with people, it is just, it's all here. That energy, it's like I could burst into tears at any second. So I have to like act like, here's just a normal thing I'm saying. It's normal. And it's like so abnormal.
But it is normal,
right.
To have someone in your family that has passed. Of course, to have a twin sister pass is really, really, I mean, I don't know if that's normal, but
I don't think it's that normal.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's a whole organization called Twinless Twins, which I researched many years ago. And I was like, I should go to like a Twinless Twin conference. And then I got so scared. And I was like, I don't think I can do that. So I never went. But I'm not the only person who's had that happen.
Right. I did know that you had a twin that passed because I'm a twin and we talked about it a long time ago. Yeah.
I know.
I always think it's such a testament to how much you love your sister, continue to love your sister, that, no matter how long it's been. Because as far as I remember, she passed away when you were young.
Yeah. When we were just on the cusp of turning 10.
Yeah. So really young, just getting into your adolescence. And so I can always tell, like, no matter how long it's been, you clearly love your sister so much because you still get emotional. So I don't know if it's like, if it would be normal for you to not, care and get emotional.
Oh yeah.
I kind of get all like, like, aw, every time you talk about it.
It's so funny because I think I love, because I have a couple of friends who are twins and they're twins. And I have this like strange fascination because I didn't get to experience our relationship in adulthood. So I'm always just a little bit like, what's it like? Like, oh, it's one of my other friends, like they're very close. I think you and your sister have like more of a separate life.
Yeah.
So I'm always just curious, like, what would it have been like,
Yeah. My sister lives in New York. I live in Vancouver. So, we don't see each other that often, but I still think it's just, I don't know. That's just like siblinghood. Like it is interesting and fun to watch my siblings grow up and like be like, oh God, this is who they've become, or being proud of who they've become, or being like, totally scandalized or horrified, whatever it is. It's interesting.
I think that you just end up being related to people that you would never hang out with otherwise.
It happens sometimes.
No, God's a psycho. And it's just like, oh, we're just going to put you with this random assortment of people who you would never otherwise spend time with.
That's why I'm so jealous of the Kardashians.
Because they like each other?
Yeah, they like each other. And I'm just like, that's the only thing that I'm so jealous of that family. Because I'm like, what you couldn't ask for a more perfect life than to be fabulously wealthy and to actually like your family. To me, that is the ultimate.
I sometimes wonder, but then Succession made me change my mind. But I was like, doesn't the wealth make it easier for them to get along? Like,
I think so.
Nobody's asking anybody for a loan. Nobody's like, Uncle Steve didn't pay me back.
And you know what? I'm so glad. See, that wisdom is why I call you one of my white Oprah friends. I have a collection of white Oprah friends that I just think are very wise.
I'm honored.
And there was something that you said years ago, because we've known each other for quite some time. There was something that you said that I'll never forget. You said that Hollywood is a place where people come to heal. Why did you say that?
I stole that from my therapist, who is Black Oprah, but a therapist. And she had told me that to actually encourage me to heal, because I was like so embarrassed when I needed to heal. And she was like, but that's why you're here. All my clients come here to do that. So that's stolen valor. It's not me. That's my therapist.
Well, if you had said it, what would you mean by it? Or what do you think your therapist meant by it?
Okay. If I really unpack that, and again, like I have this like authority in my voice that masks all the bullshit that's in what I'm about to say. So this is like full opinion. I don't know anything, but I feel like the entertainment business and Hollywood is sort of a town full of people very compelled to be in the entertainment business. I used to have this joke that like if you have a headshot, your parents fucked up, because all my friends back home who didn't have headshots or didn't want to be like stars or like in the, celebrities or like beloved by strangers, they had fundamentally strong family support system. They weren't looking for strangers to love them or validate them. And then for myself and all my friends in like comedy and acting and just, anything that's sort of like both creative, but a little bit motivated by ego, this sort of need for external validation, there's something a little sick there. And so you come here, you're attracted to that industry that's feeding that sickness, promote that, people want to be famous. So, celebrities, musicians, whatever, creative. And also creativity is like an outlet for some kind of pain that you may have had. But then if you evolve and you grow up, you're like, okay, maybe I don't need, validation from strangers. Maybe my creativity is motivated by something else. Maybe it really has turned into a craft. Maybe I'm just really good at it, or I just love doing it. So I won't speak for everybody, but it is a funny generalization that I have made.
I love that.
I mean, I certainly found that when I got emotionally healthier, my drive to be famous just ended. Like I just was like, I'm not interested anymore.
I 100% agree. I have noticed that the people who weren't driven to fame or to the entertainment industry have admirably boring lives with family and strong ties and strong connections. And there have been moments in the last few years where I've kind of envied that, where I've kind of longed for anonymity and wished that I could kind of just like have a normal life. I don't know if I can do that now. I feel like I'm like too far down the rabbit hole to like now try to have like just a regular job. But there have absolutely been moments where I've just been like, I kind of just want quiet, Yeah.
Well, I had originally wanted to be an actor, comedian who loved writing. Like the writing was always for me. I like loved it, but I was really chasing the performer career. But it gave me so much anxiety. While I was coming up in comedy, my like adrenals were just shot to hell. Whereas once I really chose writing, my comfort in writing, I just felt so much more confident. I was like, I don't want to have to brush my hair in order to do my job. I don't want to have to like worry about what I look like on camera in order to do my job. There was so much about performance or like what my voice sounds like if I can shout and make it like funny, all this stuff that I was like, I don't want that attention, but I want to express and I want to be funny and I want to express, but I don't know that I want that kind of attention.
I'm absolutely in the same boat right now. I think that's why we kind of connect, because we've just kind of been like awakened through the healing process of what we're actually doing, what we're actually seeking, what the creativity is trying to get to. And one of the things that I think has been so interesting about the creative process is that, I relate. I am performing gives me so much anxiety that I had to take a long break from it so that I could kind of rebuild my system. I felt like really drained by all of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I just kind of feel like the creative process kind of has made me get out of my shell. It has forced me to kind of inquire about why I have such fear of being seen, fear of failure, fear of all these other things. It has just been a wonderful teacher. But with that said, I wanted to ask about something that you said while you were talking earlier. You said that you were really embarrassed to be in your therapist's office and to like be seeking healing. What do you think that was about? Like, why were you so embarrassed?
Well, partly there was like some part of my upbringing that wasn't very, this was non-stereotypical, but my parents weren't encouraging necessarily of therapy for most of my life. And even my mom for a time was like very, I think, suspicious when I said I had started going. She was like, why don't you just talk to me about what's going on? Or, she didn't want, I don't think she wanted me to get healthy necessarily, because that's scary for like a family system or dynamic. That's like, but it works for us. This dynamic works for us. What, you're going to change the whole thing? And so part of the embarrassment was just that inner critic that was like a family system that was like, you're really going to go to therapy? And then the other thing was, I felt like it was a cliche. My therapist, the good one that I got when I came out here, was really recommending certain like modalities that I had prejudged, and that to me felt like a real cliche. And I also had a lot of shame that I was like, shouldn't I be past this? I felt like too old to be discovering like that this is the kind of therapy I needed, or this is what I needed to be doing, which was all bullshit. But I had to like get rid of those like internal judgments to see like, oh, this is going to, in hindsight, seeing like, wow, this is going to change your life and really help you. But at the time, there was a lot of shame.
I totally relate to that as well. One of the things that I think that I really struggled with was the fact that I needed help at all. Was that I couldn't just handle everything, that, anything gave me anxiety, that I should have just been able to handle all of it and just soldier on. And I think especially as a Black woman, that has been like a real damaging, just POV or just way to approach struggle. I think that it has been a huge unlearning to give myself the space and the time that I need, instead of trying to like force myself to do whatever it is I think that I'm going to be doing. So I 100% agreed with that thought that Hollywood is a place that people come to heal, because it's just everywhere. It's like whether it's an actor, a comedian, a writer friend, every conversation I have is about some trauma. As a matter of fact, it just feels like it's in the air right now, like just like healing trauma ever since the pandemic. It has just been an ongoing process of healing that I think that is going on a collective level. That's just how I feel.
And I also think, there's something to be said for like people who are attracted to the creative arts, whether they're actors, musicians, writers, they're probably sensitive. They're sensitive, more than somebody who's like, accounting's for me, or maybe somebody who's in finance or attracted to that. It's like, there's a sensitivity when you're like, I have something to express, because when you were in your own trauma or loneliness, you responded to the movies or the music or the great performance that made you feel something. It was like, helped you alleviate whatever you were feeling, the negative feeling. So I often think like, of course, creatives are maybe have a more empathy or sensitivity. I mean, some are total sociopaths. Not everybody's great, but
for sure,
there's like that. Oh, I have something I really need to get out of me, because it can be a coping mechanism.
My theory is based off of my own upbringing, and I think that a lot of performers come from trauma, because trauma forces you to really be observant, because there's so much that is unpredictable in your life that you kind of always have to be on your toes and you kind of have to like really know how to read people in tone and faces, and you need to know how to be charming so that you can like kind of survive. And so I always feel like I grew up more sensitive because maybe I was already naturally sensitive. And then I also, because of whatever was happening, was forcing me to kind of have to be attentive all the time and like put on whatever mask or whatever I needed to do to survive. So I kind of feel like those of us that grow up in those kinds of environments and have those kinds of coping mechanisms, creativity can be a real healing way to express ourselves. And a lot of us just have a lot of natural talent as well. Like, I don't know what it is about it. It definitely feels like a weird phenomena that happens, that the people that, didn't necessarily come from places where they felt loved now seek validation from the world, and do things to be loved by the world. And that same seeking is what can destroy you unless you actually do the work and look into yourself and your coping mechanisms and figure out where those things are coming from and what it is in your psyche or in your history or in your background that actually needs healing. What did the healing process look like for you?
Before I answer that, can I just say one thing off of what you said that I wanted to just like amend a little bit too, because I do want to make the point that I was also raised, for whatever trauma was there, in an extraordinarily creative environment where I was a very early reader. I was read to. I was, putting on plays with like my brothers and sister in the backyard. We had musical instruments. We had art supplies. We were like abundant with like play, and be creative. And I think also, I don't want to diminish that you can also come from a background where you're surrounded by things that make you want to participate in this industry or creativity. That's not just from trauma, that there's positives that go into it. And I don't want to negate that I also had that.
I love that.
That made me so interested. I wanted to play pretend because of the incredible books I was reading. I just loved reading so much, and I was like, it transported me and it made me want to write because the storytelling just like activated my imagination, and I would like read and then I would perform it. So that's a huge part of it too. And it doesn't only have to be from trauma.
I'm so glad you said that, because that's totally true. And it's important to look at the positives as well. I also was a very early reader. That also activated my imagination. I got to do a lot of things in school. I come from a very musical family. Like so many of my family members play instruments, and I was singing in church since I was like a little kid. So 100%. There's a lot of positivity that, there was a lot of that was like really, I was invested in that creative side of myself.
Yeah.
So with that said, what did the healing process look like for you?
Oh my gosh, it's so personal. Lots of writing. No, I'm just kidding. What I'm like writing a spec. Just kidding. Do you want specifics like about my?
I think it's whatever you want. I think if possible, like putting it in a way that helps others, because I think that you could be a shepherd for people that have experienced loss and are creative and or whatever, or just have worked through things, had to take some time to heal in order to get back to their work.
Okay. I love that. To put it in a way that like would mostly help others rather than make me feel self-conscious, I would say the way I did my healing, which will be a forever process. It's not like it starts and then it stops. It's, is I did it really imperfectly. And when I look at the places where I felt I'd made the most, the greatest leaps and bounds emotionally, I was still doing it really imperfectly. I participated in 12-step at the advice of my therapist. And this is a really personal thing to admit. And it's not that I feel ashamed of it, but it's just to like admit it and like, out loud like that is sort of like, huh? But I did. And it helped me attain a kind of an emotional sobriety that I hadn't had before. And it was very difficult and challenging, but how I healed was I was committed. It was deeply challenging and I fucked up a lot, but I kept going. And part of that was that my therapist was really good and really encouraging. Part of it was like, I started to notice incrementally that it was working. I was feeling better. I was like slowly just like, oh, I'm taking care of myself better. Oh, my self-esteem is improving. I'm starting to feel joy. Like I'm feeling better. And that took time. And then I just feel like even in the times where I wasn't feeling better and I was like, this isn't working, I still kept going. So it was almost as if like, I can like relate it to like, you go to the gym to work out and like, no, you're not, your body's not looking like you want it to look immediately. You're not getting the results. Maybe you want to look like Arnold Schwarzenegger, or you want to just like slim down, or you want to like get a big fat booty. I don't know what people's goals are at the gym, but you're not going to get results right away, but you should still keep going because eventually one day you're going to look and you're going to be like, is that a muscle? Oh my God, is my posture different? And it doesn't happen right away, But if you just keep going, you're going to get results. And so that, to me, the healing happened because I was just committed. Long story long. I just was committed to it. I really wanted to do better. I didn't want to be miserable.
I remember when we first started hanging out, you told me about having to take a step back from work so that you can focus on your healing. How does somebody know when it's time to take a step back?
Well, you might not know, but I don't even know that it was conscious at the time, but probably when I described it to you, it was like in hindsight, I had all this. But so my father had passed away right around the time that I went into this, like, I have to make my life better. And he was my last living parent. So when my father passed away in 2018, which is around the same time that I was like, I got to get my life together. I hadn't been working the way I wanted to be working anyway, because I had been back and forth to New York while he was ill. He was sick for a couple of years, and I was not really dropped into my own life and career during that time anyway, because of his illness and going back and forth and being wrapped up in that. And then after he died, I was having so much grief and going through so much that it was like, oh, I really don't. I don't know that I can like show up and just be like, here I am to pitch work and be productive. And so I used that year after he died. That was the year that I did all this work on myself. And I honestly just didn't have room for anything else. I was in deep grief. I was separating from a really, really pretty much abusive relationship. And I needed to make like a real change in my whole life. And it was just the time to do it, because I felt like I'm not able to be present for anything else. So that's why I did it.
I'm so proud of you. You're the best.
It was so hard. Thank you for saying that. It was so hard.
Yeah.
I lost friends during that time. They didn't like that I was like not emotionally available. I was like, oh, well, yeah, well, my dad died. So
right.
Not really emotionally available. Sorry.
Right. You talked about how you changed, how you started to have like better self-esteem. You felt you were able to feel joy. How did your work change when you went through the healing process?
Oh my God. It changed so much because I was finally like, not to use all these therapy terms, because there can be such a like density of that right now and overuse. But I really was finally emotionally present to my own life. I really had not been emotionally available into my own life. I had been avoiding myself and my passions, with bad relationships, with just like procrastination, with not taking care of myself. I was like self-neglecting. I would put my interest in other people, in stuff that gave me anxiety, and like, but I gotta be like a good improviser, even though I was like, every time I step on stage doing improv, it like gives me deep anxiety. Stand-up didn't as much when I was in control of my own words, but improv, I was like, I don't know what's going to happen. So I just had been sort of like self-neglecting. And once I gave myself attention and took care of myself, suddenly I was really able to give my work attention and discover, this is my voice again. This is what I find funny. This is what I like to write about. I became silly again too. When you have more joy and you're more present in the world, you can see the world more. You're not just inside your own pain. So I could observe again. I could write jokes again. I could participate. I could just be available to what is funny and interesting about the world. And suddenly I had stuff to write about, because I was like, oh yeah, here it is.
I think that's when I kind of met you, because we met. I had known of you before this point, but we met when I was, I had sold a sketch show to Comedy Central, and I needed a writing supervisor. And they introduced me to you. My reps set up a meeting with you, and I had known of you like in New York because you were a stand-up, but I don't know if we'd ever met before. And you were just so invested in my ideas, and you pitched me ideas at our meeting. Where did we end up meeting again? We met somewhere in like Los Feliz.
Yeah, it was at the guest house. I remember that meeting.
I remember that meeting because I was just like, I just met the bombest comedian. I'm so excited. This is going to make my project so much better. And you really did.
I love you.
To me, this is a really important skill because it's a skill that I really struggle with. Like, I am a TV writer. My job is to like take somebody else's idea and improve it and pitch on it and all these other things. And if I'm being honest, I find that hard. I find creating my own work much easier. I have much more flow when I'm creating my own work, when I have complete control. I find having to like kind of, retrofit somebody else's or like try to get in somebody else's mind, I find it hard. So how do you do that? What is it about being a writing supervisor or taking somebody else's work and making it better like excites you?
First of all, thank you for saying that. It really does mean so much to me because that's kind of what I love the most about this work is collaborating to make stuff better. Always. I just I'm a big nerd about it. I'm like, wow, we just made it better together. And we're both happy. I just love that. Especially it was so meaningful when we met because you didn't know me. And I remember you saying, you were like, I feel like I wanted to maybe work with like a Black supervisor. I really felt that. And I was like, yeah, I can't disagree with you. And it really meant so much to me that I was like, trying to convince you because I wanted to work with you because I thought your shit was so funny and I knew you're a stand-up and I was like, she's awesome.
Thank you.
But I was like, I am not here to make your show my show. You already got the deal with Comedy Central. They already believe in you. So your voice is already good. Like, it's not my ego's job. It's not my job to be like, well, this is the voice that it should be. Like you'd already had a win with them investing in your pilot. So I just right away, I was like, I have to honor whatever your voice is. And I really felt very humbled and honored that I was like, oh, if Charla wants to work with me, I have to continue honoring that. Like, that's cool. That's like it's a lot of trust. And I just feel like you're the one who had sold the show to Comedy Central, not me. So already you already have, your voice is there. So my job is to just get it to a place where they're like, let's air this. It's coherent, but it's still your voice. And I, in a lot of ways, that's what I enjoy most about writing is it takes the thing that I loved about acting, which was I get to be somebody else. I can leave my mentality, my voice, the thing I would say and be somebody else. And it's like when you're supervising somebody else's writing or you're in a room and it's like, maybe that's not how I would say it, or it's not, but this is what's required for the scene or for the tone or the show. In a little bit, it satisfies that part of me that's like, I like being someone else sometimes. What's the voice? What's the tone? What's their point of view? What's the mentality that I didn't grow up with, but is so interesting?
That's one of the things that really struck me at our meeting was, I guess what you're saying about putting your ego aside. Number one, you acknowledge the racial aspect of it and you acknowledged my hesitation and you didn't take it personally. You weren't like, oh, she doesn't want to work with me because I'm white. You were just like, oh no, I totally get it. I totally understand. And here's my point of view of how I could help, even though I don't know your background and things like that. Mm-hmm. I just felt like you were just so compassionate and so willing to not take things personally, which honestly I feel like is really important, especially in the climate that we're in right now with the politics in the country and the politics of work right now when it comes to working across racial lines. I really just feel like I just want the showrunners of tomorrow, to have that kind of mentality, across race and gender and sex and all these other things, just really having compassion for the other person and putting your ego aside and knowing that it's not about you as a person. It's about the experience for this person. So I really appreciated that. And it made me feel like, oh, I can trust Megan with my work. I can be honest with her. I can tell her how I really feel about things. She's not going to take things personally. And if she does, we can talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
We're already having such great open communication. Ultimately, sadly, Comedy Central passed their loss.
Mm-hmm.
One of the funniest things I'd ever written.
I love that show. I love that show.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah. This show, just so everybody knows, I had called this show Intersecting Charla Lauriston, and it was a sketch show that they bought and then passed on, and they're lost once again. But Megan, you just made it like infinitely funnier. I'll always appreciate you for that. What do you like about collaboration versus working by yourself?
Honestly, it like turns on my head. It turns me on in a way. Again, like I think I know my voice and what I think about things. And I live in this place 24/7 and I form my opinions and I really believe them. I believe my opinions. I believe my point of view. And it feels like a very cozy place. But when I'm collaborating, I am getting information and thoughts and point of perspectives and jokes and interesting ways of seeing things that I can't get from my own brain, and when I write, I'm constantly looking at like outside sources and inspirations and underlining stuff from other books or from other materials, music. I get inspiration from so many things, but when you're collaborating with another person in real time, you get that like very instantly. And it's, to me, a very fast, fun way to improve material. Not always, by the way. It won't necessarily make you a better writer on the page all the time, but the process of problem solving certain things, refining or revising, I think collaboration is incredible. But I was having this conversation with a former coworker today on the strike lines, and he was saying, he's like, you don't become a better writer just in the room. You have to write the scripts. You can become a better writer writing. And that is totally true.
100% true.
You have to be with yourself grinding on the page.
Sadly, unfortunately, you have to be with yourself.
which can be a painful process because you have to write that first shit draft we've talked about. You've got to like, oh, it's going to be bad. And then it's good. And if it's good right away, it's probably bad. Like, right. If you're like, this is it, you're like, that's so bad.
I don't trust it.
Every time I'm like, wow, this is something. I'm like, nope, it's bad. Why did I leave it alone? Look at it again. And I was like, what was I thinking?
So what are you working on right now?
Right before the strike started, I handed in the first feature I'd ever written to the producer I was working with. Truly like 11:59 before the WGA strike got triggered. And this was a draft I'd been working on. It's the first draft, but I'd been working on for about a year with her off a pitch that I had sort of done with her a year or two before. And it was finally ready to be shown to get attachment. Now she had my script in hand. Let's find directors and actors. So we're not doing that right now because nobody wants to look at stuff. So that's a really like long braggy way of saying I'm not really working on that much right now. I'm going to do a stand-up show for the first time in 4 years next month. So I've been writing a lot of jokes and new material. Haven't gone to an open mic to test them yet. But again, like, I don't know, maybe I'll just like try them at that first show, see how it goes. But I have been writing like new stand-up a little bit to see if I want to get back to live performing comedy.
What is the show that you're going to do?
Becky Yamamoto, you know her.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
She has a show that she's doing with some other comedians in the Valley. I think they're starting a new show. So I'll be on that inaugural show.
How much time are you going to do? Do you know?
I don't know. I made the joke. I was like, I've got like a good hour or two if you need. Let me just get back hard. Let me just do that an hour. I'd probably have like 8 minutes or less.
Okay. It's always less time than you think. Well, actually, sometimes you might have a full 15 minutes because you're riffing and you're, just on your feet trying to make this joke work.
I hope I don't do that to them. I'm preparing for like 5 to 8 minutes. And it's only going to be crowd work. Just kidding.
I'm so excited. I hope I'm in LA when you're performing.
Yeah, I think it's like the first week of August, second week of August.
Oh, that's too early. No, I won't be there.
Yeah, it's coming up. I just like have been keeping like all my jokes in this notes app and like re-looking at it. And I'm like, that's an area. It's not a full joke yet, but it's definitely a premise.
That's really fun. I can't wait. Can you tape it and send it? Are you going to put it up?
I'm so, what's the word? Superstitious. So when I was doing stand-up regularly, I would never tape sets because I was like, if I tape it, I'm going to bomb. And so I would have some amazing sets, like the best sets of my life, never taped. And then when I was like, it's time to tape, I would bomb. So I was like, see, you tried to get it permanent and so I think taping, I don't do stand up enough to like not have it make me feel self-conscious. And I think this first one back, like even Tomas was like so excited. He's like, oh, we have to promote it. We have to get people there. Like, blah, blah. And I was like, I haven't performed stand up in 4 years. I have no idea if any of my jokes are even stuff that hasn't been done on TikTok already. Like there's been so much comedy. I don't know if this premise that I think is hilarious has already been on somebody's special.
That's why the safest thing to do is just make it really personal to you. Because
right.
Who's going to do jokes about their Brazilian architect husband? You know, only you can do those. There
was a show staffing this spring that was like about a like American woman who falls in love with a Brazilian. And I didn't get it. I didn't get staff. And I was like, oh, wow. I'm bad.
Wow. It's hard out here.
I was like, just went to Rio. Learning Portuguese, speak it a little bit. And they were like, not you.
No, not you.
Some other American who's fallen in love with a Brazilian, not you. I'm like, okay.
Okay, I'm sorry. So that didn't work out. But here's, I will say that I think you should tape it. And here's why, because I had the exact same fear when I was like, I had the exact same kind of like superstition. Like if I tape it, it's going to be awful, blah, 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 whatever. And then what I started doing was I just started taping everything. I started taping it, whether it was an open mic or if it was an actual show. And it got to the point where I forget I even had the tape. I'll forget if the tape is even going. Like it's literally the last thing I'm thinking about when I'm on stage is whether or not I'm recording the show. And then what happens is that I'll look back and I'll have this treasure trove of tapes that I forgot I even had. And if I want to look back and watch the show, then I can see what I did. Because I'll usually I'll record audio anyway, but I really think taping video is really great to just watch yourself and as well as see if the joke worked.
That's really smart.
It's something you'll get over. It's just like, you just got to rip the Band-Aid.
Because if you tape everything, then none of the tapings are special. And then you lose that consciousness.
None of them are special.
And also probably stuff is coming up every time you're performing that's like a fix on a joke or you did something better. You got a tag that you didn't know you were going to have. And then you don't have to lose that.
Exactly. Or you did some crowd work that came up really organically that now is in your set. It's like, I just think it's something that you should do, period.
You just convinced me.
And also just to get over it. Yeah, I knew I would.
You just fully convinced me. I'm going to tape it.
Get over it. Yeah.
I'm going to tape it.
We're going to take a short break. And when we come back, we'll continue talking.
Okay.
I'm quickly interrupting this episode to tell you about theworkingwriter.com. It's a resource I created for screenwriters and creative entrepreneurs that includes a blog, a course, and this podcast. Right now, when you sign up for the mailing list, you'll get my Get Repped mini course for free. I cover what agents and managers do, how to know when you're ready for a rep, and how to find the right rep for you. If you're working on breaking into TV, I hope it gives you some concrete steps to get to the next level in your journey. Go to theworkingwriter.com, that's WERKING, and sign up for the mailing list now to download the Get Repped mini course for free. Are you a screenwriter who's feeling stuck or lost or just wanting to take your career to the next level? Then you need to check out the Werking Writer School. The Werking Writer School is an online course and community I created that trains screenwriters to become creative entrepreneurs who can confidently navigate building a professional network, attract managers and agents, manage their personal finances, pitch a TV show, and consistently produce original work they're proud of. When you join with one of our flexible membership options, you'll get the course, plus live monthly virtual workshops with writers from Portlandia, American Dad, The Last OG, and more. Go to theworkingwriter.com/school and sign up today to get training, mentorship, and support from a community of writers just like you. Now, back to the episode. So you wrote a movie. And it was the first movie that you ever wrote. What was that experience like? How did you actually physically write it? Like, did you schedule yourself every single day? Did you have a certain amount of time that you wrote? Did you have to read a bunch of other movies? Like, what did you do?
I just want to shout out my producer. I don't know if I can like name her yet, but like I had somebody who was giving me deadlines, who was a total professional, who also gave me incredible notes and was such a delight to work with, that the process for me was like, I had pitched a bunch of movies. Like, I don't know if you know this term, bake off. I don't even know if they were like strict bake offs, but a bunch of like production or studio wanted like particular low budget comedy movie log lines for like specific ideas, like a holiday themed movie or a movie that had to do with like sommeliers or wine life. And I had worked with her to like pitch all these log lines a few years ago during the pandemic. And my log lines and my pitches were very good and were going far. And she was like, I love this one. And then we like pitched it to the studio and they loved it. And another one, they loved it. But the feedback was, we are not going to pay this woman who's never written a feature for off a pitch. Like, does she have any specs? Does she have any feature specs? And it was like, I kept saying like, I don't, I've been working in TV. And finally, like a little over a year ago, she had come back to me and she was like, I can't get this one pitch that you had done out of my head, this log line. And I would love for you to do it on spec. And then through my company, I can take it out and we can get attachment. So please, can you just write it and I'll help you? And I was like, yes, good. If we sell it, I will have sold my first movie. And if we don't, I will have written my first movie. And then it's a win.
Amazing.
I started that last summer. And the process was hard and humbling because it was just longer than a TV script. It's just longer.
How long did it take you overall, do you think?
Well, my first real draft that I got into her, I got in probably in like 2.5 months.
That's really fast.
3 months. After I had done the outline in about a month and a half, because I'd already really done a lot of the work in this like first pitch that I had done for these studios. Like I really had like the world's most condensed treatment, but I had sort of figured out the movie. So then I read like books and like watched other, it's a rom-com, watched other rom-coms for like the structure, which is like very mathematical. And so my outline, I was like, I worked with her in the outline and the outline was pretty solid enough to go to script. And so that first shitty draft I got done in like less than 3 months, but it was so shitty. So then I spent the rest of the year fixing that. What we didn't even call it a first draft because it just wasn't good enough to be a first draft, and spent all that time to like get what we could call an actual working first draft. So all that rewriting took like less than 9 months, but about 9 months of just, there was a whole character I got rid of that I had been so proud of, that I was like, this is going to make my movie so different and cool. And I was like, it is like progressive and cool. And I was really proud of it. And she was like, this character is not working. And I don't think you're the person to write it.
Brutal.
And it was like really like a painful thing to get told. And I was just like, fine, it's out. That character's gone. And now I have to fill in with my other characters, and whatever that character was serving, I have to do it with someone else. And the note was correct, but it was like, fuck, I really thought this, I pat myself on the back. It's going to be so funny and interesting. And it was like, it's bad. It's not working. No. And other stuff like that, like certain things that she said were like, this is a little bit predictable. Here's like a plot point that just feels really predictable. And to be like, I have to problem solve that. I have to make it exciting and surprising. And that takes like, what's the answer for that? How do I fix that? Those rewrites were hard.
You know what's so interesting about this is that I feel like the more professional of a writer I've become, the more I absolutely have to have another professional give me feedback on my work, or it's just a non-starter. It's like, now that I've worked with you, I work with Ben Axelrad on my pilots and things like that. I'm just like, I'm never doing this without that ever again.
Yeah.
Because when I read back my first draft versus what it becomes after somebody is super critical about it, really honest, but actually gives you really great feedback, it's just like night and day. And it just makes you a better writer each time. And I'm just like, man, do you think that that's an important part of like being an amateur or like a non-professional versus professional, of just like having other eyes on your work?
I have to say, get trusted eyes as soon in your career as possible. And that's not to say that everybody is a trustworthy reader, but people whose writing you respect, who are working, who, again, like you feel like you can trust them because they know your voice. They're not trying to get you to be a different kind of writer than you are. They're not putting their ego in your work. But I spent too many years being too scared to show my work. I didn't ask for help. I didn't ask for readers, and it fucked me. Like, I could have been rewriting and gotten so much further, I think. But I was like shy. I was scared. I was like too perfectionist. I wanted to only show final drafts. I didn't want to show stuff in process. And it's always a process. Like, definitely get trusted readers. They will not only, if a trusted reader who has like a good eye for what you're trying to accomplish is invaluable, but you are less likely to go back and rewrite if you're your only editor. Like, how are you going to fix something that you have lost perspective on? Whereas something that you're like, I didn't even know that was a problem, can be inspiring to be like, oh, you just changed the way I saw my script. I didn't know that was a problem area. But now that I know that is, it's actually affecting other stuff that's not working. Now I know how to fix it. It's so invaluable.
Absolutely.
It's the best. And people who are willing to do it are like, heroes, right?
They're Mother Teresa's.
Yeah.
Now I'm like unwilling to do it unless you pay me. Like, it's so much work. You know what I mean? So I'm just like, no, I'm just not a Mother Teresa. I wish I could, but I'm not. But those kinds of eyes are invaluable. I remember the first time I got into a writing group was with a friend of mine, Roche, a bunch of other television writers, and when I read my work back, I was just like, it's so bad, you know? And when they gave me notes, it basically just opened my eyes to like the level it needed to be at. Cause this was like an early draft. It was like an early pitch that I was doing. But it 100% accelerated how good the script could be. If I had not shown it to anyone otherwise, you know, like I really think good writing depends on feedback.
I don't know if this is true, so I'm not out here like trying to spread a rumor, but even like your favorite writers who like getting Emmys and Golden Globes, like they have trusted feedback. And I'm saying the story because it inspires me, but I love White Lotus. I think it's so brilliant. And it's so good. The story going around that like when Mike White was first writing it, it didn't have any murder plot. It wasn't a murder mystery at all. And I guess HBO, you know, we're like in like the bingeable world or like cliffhanger world, or, you know, it's got to be propulsive. Somebody had given the note, like, can we get some of that inside this world? And I can imagine like a writer of his caliber being like, fuck. But then he added it and the show was addicting and brilliant.
Yeah. Yeah.
And all the things he wanted to satirize, he still got to satirize while we all were still like, who is it? Who done it?
Yeah.
Like, it was brilliant. So, you know, sometimes there'll be a note, like, again, like even the people that you worship as like the top tier writers are getting feedback that may be changing and improving their original idea.
If there was anything that you could, I guess, you know, say to a writer, whatever place they are in their career, maybe it's to summarize something you've learned that's been really important to you or that has helped you, what would you offer to other writers?
The best advice I ever got, and I didn't take it until more recently than I'd like to admit, but it's finally, it's happening in the last 5 years for me, is finish your work, finish your script, finish the piece of work, finish. Just, if you start a script, a spec, a poem, a joke set, and you're like, I don't like it, but you've put in that work, just finish it and make the draft, make the shitty draft, get it finished, put it in a drawer, and relook at it. But if you don't get in the habit of completing your work, you don't strengthen the muscle of how to make a complete work. Because the hardest part is being like, this is my beginning, my middle, my end. What does the whole piece look like, feel like? And if you keep bailing on doing that, again, committed work, you're cheating yourself out of a major skill set as a writer, which is this has a beginning, a middle, and an end. People like to the whole work. It has to have that. And if you keep bailing, you're not strengthening that muscle, which is just so important.
Absolutely.
You got to get better, and you got to be doing that work to get better. And it sucks sometimes, but your job is to be the best writer you can be. So you might as well not cheat yourself. Finish.
I love it.
I hate it so much.
I love it. Thank you so much, White Oprah.
Oh my God.
For coming on the show.
I wish I had White Oprah money. I'm not White Oprah.
I'll manifest it for you. I'm manifesting it for you.
I'll take it.
Yeah, I want you to have it. Let's see what happens with this movie. Let's see when this strike ends, because it must. So let's see what happens. Well, thanks so much, Megan.
So good to see you, Charla. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that episode with Megan Neuringer as much as I did, and I hope you got a lot out of it. Until next time, get out there, get to work. There's no way I could do this podcast alone. I wanted to give a big shout out and thank you to our editor, Justin Asher, and to our other production assistants, Jemima Lauriston, Maya Racole, and Nicole Edwards.